Welcome into another edition of the Irish Hello, this time from the Blaze Radio Podcast Studio in Tempe. As always, Aidan O'Neill alongside my good buddy Shay Maloney. We're so excited to break down the MLB. It's the best part of the year. Last year, if you guys remember, we were live on Twitter. We did our MLB postseason prediction show there. And now we're doing it from a new location. So, Shay, how you feeling? I know tomorrow it all begins. We've been waiting for it. It feels pretty good.
I'm feeling good. I was trying to decide this morning if I like MLB opening day better or the first day of MLB playoffs. And it's a tough decision. I think they're equal.
They're equal.
And I think we should get into, before we start getting into the postseason, I think we should get into where we went wrong and where we went right, because we got a lot of things right. And so we got to be humble, and I think we got to be, we got to admit where we went wrong, take accountability, and then we pivot to victory laps.
Yeah. I think we should start with where we went wrong, because you always want the negative before the positive. I personally want to start with my Manager of the Year predictions, because how fitting is it that the two people I picked to win Manager of the Year, Rocco Baldelli in the AL and Bob Melvin in the NL, both got fired on the same day. You know how insane that is? Both on the same day get fired? And I had them winning the most prestigious award for a manager?
Well, one of my guys didn't get fired, but I also had Rocco Baldelli winning Manager of the Year, and then my other guy was Brian Snitker. Those two teams had – Atlanta had the sixth worst record in baseball, and Minnesota had the second worst record in baseball. So
we just got to –
it could be worse.
We got to acknowledge it. And a lot of the Twins' struggles, I don't even know if they can be blamed on Rocco. It kind of felt like everything just went wrong at once, and they had no other – choice but to fire him.
And then they had the fire sale at the deadline, just lose all fans all at once, and then you fire Rocco. That's a cherry on top. I want to know where they go this offseason, not only in player acquisition but also manager acquisition, because that is a team that we both had winning our AL Central,
and for good reason. That roster was loaded up. It's the same thing every single year for the Minnesota Twins. When they are healthy, they are absolutely electric. They can do whatever they want, and it's because of the pitching staff. It always starts with their starters. And that is where their struggle was this season. They trade their star closer in Johan Duran, and it all fell apart. I wonder, Shay, is Joe Mauer an option? Because catchers, they make amazing managers. Every team wants to hire a catcher as their manager. Joe Mauer is the best player in Minnesota Twins franchise history. Is he an option? Would he come back?
You copied the Stephen Vogt strategy from another team in your division, the team that did win the division this year.
And knowing Joe Mauer, the way he operates with the media, we obviously don't know what his tendencies would be coaching-wise. I would guess he'd be a really good coach. I would.
I think so, too. I like that show. Rocco got fired right before we went on air.
Yeah,
so
it just happened.
I haven't seen a whole lot of coaching candidates thrown out. I've seen a couple for the Giants. Skip Schumacher, who's been an NL manager. Won Manager of the Year even a couple of years ago. I'm a little jealous if you guys get him, because that was at the top of my list. If Ollie Marmol is another manager that's fired, haven't seen that news yet. It's got to be there. I keep refreshing. It's just not popping up yet. So Skip I would like, and then you guys, I also saw Kurt Casale, who, speaking of catchers.
I'd love Kurt. What he meant to the team in 2021 when they went on their magical run, and it's sandwiched by all these years of mediocrity. It doesn't even feel real. And then Skip, too. He won Manager of the Year, and they canned him. That never happens. Well, for the Cardinals it did too, which is ridiculous. But that is an organizational issue with a front office wanting to operate a certain way, and then the coach wants to do their own thing. Even if it's successful, ownership sometimes doesn't like that success if it's not the status quo of what they are trying to achieve. So that'll be really interesting. I'd be amazed if we got Kurt Casale. I'd be really excited about that. The key for me as a Giants fan is get younger. I want this acquisition to be young. I don't want it to be Bruce Bochy and a farewell tour. I think that would be fun. I'd convince myself that that would be better than Bob Melvin, but for the good of the franchise moving forward with this core group of guys now looking to build a contender, Schumacher or Casale fit the timeline in a much better way.
Yeah, and I like that. And you got to toe the line when you're talking about, because Bruce Bochy, an older guy, he's not going to be puppeteered by anybody in the front office. He's going to do what he wants. He's going to manage the way he wants to manage. A guy like Ollie, young guy, been through the organization as a player, then as a coach throughout. He can be puppeteered. He's a talking head for the front office. He does what the front office wants. So you have to toe that line between young and old. But with your guys' side, I don't think Buster Posey is something to worry about with that.
No.
I think Buster knows that he needs to do his thing and let the manager, whoever he decides to hire, which it will be his hire now, do his thing.
Had a press conference today, essentially said, I want a guy that cares. I want a guy that all he cares about, he lives and breathes winning when he wakes up, when he goes to bed, because Buster Posey was the integral part of 3 World Series championships in 5 seasons. Like, he knew what that was all about. And to get that franchise back, there's a lot of these franchises that were so brilliant in the 2010s that are now losing it as we move to the mid-2020. And both of them, unfortunately, 2 of our teams. And it's about getting back on track, getting to the baseball that we both fell in love with, honestly.
Yeah, and speaking of another guy that got fired, linked to a prediction we had in the beginning of the season, or that I had in the beginning of the season, was Davey Martinez, who got fired mid-season. Washington Nationals had a terrible year. I thought they were going to be this year's Royals, where young team, nobody had them with high expectations, and they ended up stealing that final wild card spot. That did not happen for the Washington Nationals. They were, speaking of teams with bottom whatever records, Nationals 66 and 96. And I misspoke. Twins did not have the second worst record. They're going to have the second best odds for the number 1 pick because of the Rockies, Nationals, Angels not able to get that top spot because of bonus pool, all this kind of revenue sharing, all that kind of stuff. But Twins were bad, Braves were bad. That was the point. Nationals were also bad, and they did not get that wild card spot. And so, as we're talking about predictions gone wrong, that's mine.
Well, that's a team that should have put it together. I can't even blame you. They have James Wood, who took that next step. Dylan Cruz was my pick for NL Rookie of the Year. And they fell flat on their face because of a lack of starting pitching behind Mackenzie Gore and a bullpen that was also shaky. I mean, they were throwing guys out there that both me and you haven't heard of. They trade Kyle Finnegan. And that next step that they should have taken just wasn't in the cards. They're still there. They're a couple moves away, I think, from being there. I really do.
They fired Mike Rizzo, too. I think Mike Rizzo is one of the best executives in baseball, or he was, and he went away with Davey Martinez.
And then we both were skeptical about Eli Willits going number 1 overall because it didn't fit the timeline, and that was after Mike Rizzo just got fired. So I feel like the organization is on different pages with one another. From the front office to the ownership, they're not a cohesive unit. That cohesive unit that built the championship that they were able to bring when Juan Soto was still there. So they have to get back to a true identity. Right now, the Washington Nationals do not have an identity. They don't know what they want. So that's where they got to go from here.
And then Atlanta, we were both wrong on Atlanta. Very wrong on Atlanta. That was both of our World Series picks.
Yeah.
And they just, speaking of falling flat on their face, injury riddled, and they don't make it at all.
I just still think like
in a National League East that was not as strong as we expected it to be.
No, not at all.
Especially when we were looking at Phillies and Braves at the top. They have been year in and year out. And then you have a young Marlins team. You had a Nationals team that was young and hungry and that I thought was going to make it to the playoffs. And then a Mets team that they were paying $300, $500 million. That was supposed to be the division, and Atlanta was supposed to be one of the guys at the top. And the division wasn't nearly as good, and a lot of that was because Atlanta was just not good at all.
Atlanta's injury luck was so bad, as you mentioned, and also they just weren't as good with the players that were healthy as we expected. Ozzie Albies was banged up. He had a down year. You didn't hear a lot about Austin Riley, who also was banged up. Matt Olson. I mean, these are elite players. This roster is elite. When everything is clicking, they're going to be a perennial World Series contender, and it would be ridiculous of us not to sit here and say, next year they're going to be right back.
Right back, yeah. Their offensive statistics, if you look from what they were doing in 2021, 2022, 21 they won, 22 they had arguably an even better offense. That has all gone away. And I'm not sure if that's injury things. Austin Riley, you talk about it, tons of strikeouts from him. Olsen bit by the strikeout bug too. You're right, Ozzie fell off. Acuna was hurt until halfway through the year. Spencer Strider was hurt from the pitching side halfway through the year. They have they have half to 2/3 of the roster completely figured out, set in stone. They got to figure out the depth-wise so that if injuries arise again, they're not screwed. And they were screwed this year as soon as that happened.
That organization, Alex Anthopoulos.
Yeah, talk about best GMs in baseball.
Oh, my gosh. He figures it out. He's going to figure it out. They also had Jerks and Profar with PEDs. That wasn't in the cards. I mean, so many things went wrong. Everything went wrong, and they still went on a little run at the end to say, we're still here. There's a little hope. And then imagine if a team like this gets a top 5 pick. They're right back there. I want to segue into our MLB predictions preseason that were good. And I want to give Shay credit. He sat there at the beginning of this season. Nobody believed in him. The Toronto Blue Jays are going to go from worst to first in the division. Calling you crazy, Shay. And look what happened. They pieced it together. George Springer had a phenomenal season. The pitching was great. And an ultra-competitive AL East. An AL East that had 3 playoff teams.
Yeah.
They are the number 1 seed in the AL. Round of applause for Shay.
I appreciate that. They tried to give it up at the end. Yankees won 8 games to end the season. If the Blue Jays didn't finish on a 4-game winning streak themselves, they probably do give that up. They had the tiebreaker over New York, and they got it done. And the pitching was good, but it was honestly, that was the unit that I was using to back up that prediction, was the starting pitching rotation. Really what stole the show was the offense. The offense was top 3 in Major League Baseball, with some names that you would not expect to be on an offense that was top 3 in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
But George Springer's resurgence, Bo came right back strong. Vladdy's doing what he's doing after he got paid. It's just very impressive stuff from Toronto's offense, and that is why they have the number 1 seed. Very, very fun number 1 seeds this year in Toronto, Milwaukee.
Shows the parity. It's another year, too. And Shay and I sat here last year. It was Yankees-Dodgers. It was the World Series. It was everyone calling, oh, we need a salary cap. The sport's gone. And I haven't heard one bit of that this season.
Crickets.
There hasn't been a word of that. Because there is parity in this sport. If you develop as an organization, if you draft well, if you pay the right guys early, long-term contracts for your young players that end up blossoming, they're going to be successful. That's just what it is. And the Brewers and Blue Jays are doing that. As well as the Cincinnati Reds somehow getting in with 83 wins. We'll get to that later. But it's a sport of parity. It's another year where nobody won 100 games. If you picked, there's 12 playoff teams. I'd say there's only a couple. If you pick them to win the World Series, I would truly call you crazy. And that shows you all you need to know.
Well, yeah, and it's just all these teams went on spurts at different times. They flirted with dominance for 3-week stretches, and they flirted with disaster for 3-week stretches. All these teams had moments like that. And so it's going to make for, I think, a chaotic but very fun postseason. I'm excited to get into it. I did have 5 out of my 6 division winners right.
That's big time.
I missed on 4 of the 12 playoff teams, but I did have 5 out of 6 division winners. I had the Blue Jays winning the AL East, and I had the Red Sox and Yankees actually in the matchup that they are going to play in the wild card. I had them as that 4-5, the rivalry in the first round. I had the Mariners winning the AL West. The only division I did not hit on is the Twins, as we already talked about. I thought the Twins were going to be the only team from that AL Central that made the playoffs. That was very wrong. The Tigers and Cleveland both make it in there over them. And in the National League, I had the Phillies winning the NL East, later losing to the Braves. They're not going to have that chance. And then I had Milwaukee being the only NL Central team. Instead, we have 3 NL Central teams from – that was the conversation, is that the Centrals were the weakest divisions in baseball. 5 out of the 12 teams are from the Centrals.
Yeah.
3 in the NL, 2 in the AL, and it wasn't even the team that we thought in the AL. And then I had the Dodgers winning the NL West as well with the Padres behind them. That ended up being correct. So I think we did pretty good prediction-wise.
Yeah. I didn't get as many division winners correct. Let's see. Dodgers, Brewers. I had the Yankees winning the East. They were really close to doing that. They didn't. I did not have the Phillies. I had the Braves, who had that down year. But wild card-wise, had the Guardians getting in, so that was pretty cool seeing them, and they ultimately won the division. I had the Blue Jays, was high on them too, just not as high. Then the Mariners, and then I had the Padres, and yeah, we did good.
And
we really did.
We both did not have the Mets, correct?
Nope, we both did not have the Mets. And how about that? That demise.
And did you have the Astros?
I did not.
Look at us. So,
yeah. So basically, just watch us for your MLB stuff. But no, it was a really good season, and the parity. I mean, we're gonna go through these predictions, and I'll tell y'all right now, I expect Shay and I to differ on a lot of these because that is what the playoffs are promoting this season.
I mean, I differed with myself on most of these.
Oh my gosh, I had to sit there and I was second guessing myself. I was like, does this matter more? What should I truly prioritize? And now you're in a spot. You got to pick somebody to win it. somebody's going to win the Fall Classic for their first time or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement around this time of year. And with where this sport is at, these small markets can still find success.
I agree.
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to start in the American League. The Tigers and the Guardians, AL Central foes. The Tigers were up double digits in the division. The Guardians come storming back with a team that doesn't have a lot of juice offensively. They don't do anything particularly well, but what do? They win.
They win.
They win games, and that's all that matters.
That's the most important stat when it comes to the playoffs is how many wins can you pull out of your butt. And they pull wins out of their butt.
They were just phenomenal with Stephen Vogt now, and as an organization, they have gotten so much production from their young players, kind of coming out of nowhere. They're hosting. I first want to hear your prediction. I had 4 things that I went off of this year. I always care about how hot a team is going into the playoffs. I think that really matters.
It's important.
If you're getting going at the right time, that should matter. I care about your pitching. That's always up there. If you need to pitch to win. If you can't pitch, you're not going to win in the postseason. Your offense obviously matters. And then the coach. I think managers actually make a difference in MLB play.
Somebody's got to push the buttons.
Those are my 4 categories. Tigers, Guardians, reunited. Last year, the Guardians beat them. Who you got this season?
This is going to be Game 1, Tarek versus Gavin Williams. It's a rematch of, I think this was last Tuesday, when these two teams were meeting in the middle of the Tigers' collapse. Could the Guardians actually pull off the division title? They did, and a lot of that was because the Guardians were able to beat Tarek in this game. Gavin Williams has just come out of nowhere.
He's terrific.
And it's really not nowhere when you're talking about Guardians pitchers. We were laughing about this. Usually the Guardians, the guys they have go 6-7 shutout innings. They're not huge. They don't throw 100. Gavin Williams does. He is a unit on the mound. He throws hard. He's got ridiculous stuff. You pair that with the Guardians pitching development, he's going to be successful, and that's exactly what happened this year. And Tanner Bybee took a little bit of a step back, and it didn't matter because of how good Gavin Williams was. So that's going to be a terrific Game 1 tomorrow. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
So Tarek not only lost that start last week in a big game, he also lost his playoff start, that big playoff start.
Game 5 last year.
Game 5 against Cleveland. I think he's going to get his get back. I think he gets his get back in Game 1. Part of that is because Gavin Williams, as good as he is, young guy, this is a huge game for him, biggest game of his career, Game 1 of the playoffs. And if the Tigers do win that first Tarek game, they just got to get one of the next 2.
Yep.
3-game series. I know they're on the road, but they just have to win one of the next 2. It's probably going to be Casey Mize, Tanner Bybee in the second one, and then it'll be Jack Flaherty versus Slade Ciccone. I think I like their shot to win one of the next 2.
Yeah.
Love the Guardians. They're so fun. There's no reason they should be in this position whatsoever. There's no reason they should be hosting this playoff series.
Just crazy.
They were 10 games back of the Tigers on September 6th. 10 games back on September 6th of the division.
We're still in September.
Correct. Man, it's the biggest divisional
Collapse.
deficit overcome we've ever seen.
Yeah.
15.5. The Guardians were 15.5 back at one point, and now they win the division. We've never seen that in baseball before. With that being said, I do have Detroit advancing. I think you got 3 probable righties for Cleveland: Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, who I mentioned. A lot more hittable this year, he's proved, and then Slade Ciccone. He's been good at times, but it's Slade Ciccone at the end of the day. Detroit's hitters, they do the platoon thing. They have a lot of talented lefties. Their best hitters are Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter. Those are left-handed guys. They're going to have that advantage over the Cleveland righties and certain things. And then Cleveland has the second worst offense in baseball.
Yeah.
And so that's the one I couldn't really get past, is you have the second worst offense in baseball. Yes, the bullpen moved you on in the playoffs. It helped tremendously last year. The bullpen is terrific again. But it's hard to defend 0. It's impossible to defend 0.
Yeah.
And there might be some instances, especially in that Tarek game, where they're trying to defend 0 because the offense can't get anything going against the AL Cy Young winner. And on the other side, Detroit, with some of their offensive shortcomings, they've been a top half offensive team. They're built on pitching, but they've been a top half offensive team, and they're top 10 in home runs hit. This could be a series where pitching is so good, the margin is so slim. A big hit, a big home run here and there could shift the momentum, especially in one of those final games of the series, Game 2 or Game 3. I do think this goes 3 games, but I think if Tarek wins Game 1, it'll be hard for the Tigers to lose this series.
Yeah. I also have the Tigers in 3.
Okay, there we go.
I'm big on the Tarek get back. He's simply just too good to be held down for another season. And when a team like the Guardians, I've seen this before in the playoffs, they have this magical run, they get in. The natural mindset would be, oh my goodness, this is the demise of the Tigers and this is the surge of the Guardians, and there's no way that the Tigers can bounce back from that. I see it as almost the opposite. I think that this is where the Tigers can take full advantage and they can ultimately flip the script. Tarek Skubal's going to win American League Cy Young. This is no slouch. He's been knocked down before by Cleveland. He's going to get right back there. I expect them to win game 1. I think the Guardians are good enough to win a game, but I'm right there with Shay. I couldn't get over the fact that the Guardians, yes, they find ways to win, but you also have to have the juice. You have to have some sort of juice. It's not just going to be Jose Ramirez going 3 for 4 every game, and that's going to get it done. Who else is going to come through in this lineup now that David Fry's also out? I don't know. So I'm all over the Tigers, and I also trust AJ Hinch. If there's any manager that can rebound from a demise and then say, hey, guys, we're still here, it's him.
Well, that's another thing. This year, Casey Mize has been good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a lot closer to that 1-1 pick potential that we were questioning all throughout his career. Jack Flaherty, he definitely has his shortcomings, but when he's matched up against Slade Ciccone one-on-one, I think I have to take Flaherty.
I would agree.
And so last year, Timmy Kirchin on the call was like, pitching chaos. The Tigers do the pitching chaos things. They can still do that. AJ Hinch is the mad scientist that can win on that, but they don't need that as much.
No,
they
don't.
You have Skubal, Mize, Flaherty. Best case scenario, those guys can give you a combined 18 innings in this series as a starting pitcher. And for that reason, I'm taking Detroit.
For the Tigers to have been a true contender, they needed to add a number 2 starting pitcher at the deadline. But they can, with what they have now, get past Cleveland in the wild card. Tigers in 3 for both of us. So far, we're 1 for 1 on agreements. We'll see if that continues. That's going to be a great series, though. That's the first one tomorrow, 10 a.m. We're going to be seated, ready to go. So fired up. Let's now move on to Red Sox versus Yankees. The rivalry. I mean, it really doesn't get better than this.
Very glad this series is happening.
This is just 2 teams that have had so much history going at it, and they matched up in the 2021 wild card. Red Sox beat them then. You've watched the documentaries. I mean, the history's there. Aaron Judge, so many question marks with him. He's had one of the best offensive seasons ever, but he struggles in the playoffs. The Red Sox, they traded Rafael Devers. They're still here. If I were to encapsulate a storyline for this series, it would be the departures, but we're still here. The Yankees departed from Juan Soto, but we're still here. The Red Sox got rid of Devers, but we're still here. And now, with the new group, who can rally and do their thing?
Garrett Cole injured, but we're still here.
Yes, that too.
Crochet versus Fried doesn't get much better than that in game 1. Then it gets really shaky for Boston, and this prediction is not really going to be based on a head-to-head who kind of attacks the vulnerabilities of one another, who matches up strength versus weakness and vice versa. This is more anti-Boston. I have the Yankees advancing because I don't think the Red Sox succeed in the playoffs this year. I don't trust their lineup at all after the top 3. They have Duran, Story, Bregman, but then there's no Roman Anthony. He's injured. Masataka Yoshida has been their cleanup hitter. And then it gets even worse after that. I don't trust that at all. Pitching-wise, after Crochet, I think they're screwed, and we got news today they're even more.
Yeah, no Giolito now.
No Giolito. He's hurt. So that was probably going to be your game 3 guy. If it came to that, he could have even been game 2, but now that's confirmed Brian Bayo. And so you have Crochet versus Fried, and then Bayo versus Rodon. Crochet, yes, you could steal that game 1 on the road in New York. But also Fried has been the best pitcher in baseball for the last month. 7 innings pitched in 5 of his last 6 starts. And if they win game 1, then they're absolutely in 2-game sweep territory with Rodon going the next day. Yankees have the best offense in baseball. They're top 10 in everything. They're first in OPS. They're first in runs scored. They're first in home runs hit. They also are on an 8-game winning streak. We talked about how important it is to be the hottest team in your matchup, they are that. They almost took the division from the Blue Jays, a Blue Jays team that won 4 straight games to end the year. So because of how shaky the pitching is post-Crochet, I don't know what they do in a Game 3 if it comes to that.
I don't either.
I have no idea what they would do. Yankees, they have Cam Schlittler, who is a young guy.
Who's been great.
Unproven, but he's been fantastic lately as well. So the Yankees pitching, not only has the team been hot, the Yankees pitching has been on a heater. And I think that takes advantage of a Boston lineup that is just not good enough at all, starting with the 4-hitter and going all the way down to 9.
I have the Yankees in 2 games. I don't think the Red Sox win a game here. And a lot of it has to do with what Shay was talking about the pitching after Garrett Crochet. But the Yankees' offense is much better. They're hosting. Last year, they went all the way to the World Series. I feel like that quickly gets swept under the rug. They still have the makings of being a team that can be extremely successful. But after the Red Sox traded Rafael Devers, they were leaning on Roman Anthony to be that thump. And without that thump, I don't know what they are. I cannot emphasize enough, too. Tomorrow for the Boston Red Sox is the definition of a must-win game. They have to win tomorrow. If they lose tomorrow, they will lose in 2 games, just like I predicted. But the Yankees have one of the best offenses in the league. The pitching's coming around, and they're red hot. Everything points to New York taking advantage, and I have them not losing a game in this series and taking back the keys to this rivalry.
Masataka Yoshida, Romy Gonzalez, Rafaela, Nate Lowe, Wilyer Abreu, Carlos Narvaez.
Those are not good enough.
Those are the projected 4 through 9 hitters in a postseason lineup going head-to-head against the number 1 offense in baseball. And yes, playing your home games at Yankee Stadium help a lot. The Bronx is very hitter-friendly. Where do they play this series?
Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium versus, again, the Red Sox pitching that after Crochet, before Aroldis Chapman. I don't care if you have Aroldis Chapman, who's been the best closer in baseball this year. You got to win. You got to be winning the game in the 9th inning to trot him out. And I could see a world where 6th inning comes around, they got to go to Chapman just to keep the series alive.
I can
picture that right now. So I got the Red Sox, and I think this could be – I have this more as a likely sweep than I do the Tigers beating the Guardians.
I agree. And for me, too, it's so easy, especially this year. I don't know if you ran into this, to like have every series in the wild card go to 3 games. So for the Yankees Red Sox, I was like, this one can't go to 3. One of these can't go to 3 games.
If I remember right, we had 3 out of the 4 were sweeps last year.
Yeah.
I think we only had 1 game on that Thursday.
There's a real, and it was Mets Brewers, right?
Yes.
There's a real thing about momentum, especially in a best 2 out of 3. That game 1, if you look at the numbers, it's probably 70+% of winners win game 1.
Yeah.
So you got to get it done to start the series because winning 2 straight is so difficult.
We talk about that one game wild card format that we used to have.
Madness.
Obviously, the margin is as thin as it gets, and that never belonged in baseball really because of the sport is built on any given day. That's why we play 162. It's the great equalizer because the Rockies can go win a series against anybody in the league. The wild card series is much better, but in terms of series, thin margins. And you're exactly right. If you win game 1, you're set up terrifically to win the series. With that being said, if Fried, even though I think they could get game 1 because of how good Fried has been, even if the Red Sox do get game 1, I don't know if they're winning the next 2.
Bad spot for Boston, especially after trading Devers. They still get in the playoffs, but with how everything's been trended, I just don't see them recovering. Shay's in the exact same boat. We'll go to the other side, National League, wild card now. Cubs, Padres. Cubbies, they've been shaky. So have the Padres. Both of these teams, I think either can come out of this, but both have kind of gone against you got to be hot at the right time because both have been mediocre at the wrong time. But they match up against each other. It's hosted at Wrigley Field. I was high on the Padres last year. They were so close to eliminating my least favorite team. And then they scored 0 runs in 20-plus innings. 0. And it broke my heart. It really did. And both of these managers are elite. Mike Schilt, Craig Counsell. I think this is probably the best manager matchup you can get in baseball. Or as close to it. But I'm going to go with the Cubs in 3. I worry about the starting pitching, but I also worry about the starting pitching for San Diego. And because this is at Wrigley Field, and because the Brewers are in the next round, I envision a world where it's an NL Central rematch. Cubs-Brewers. The storyline is Craig Counsell against his former team in the playoffs. And baseball is fueled by these storylines, by the drama. And the Cubs offense has been plenty good enough too. I have to go with Chicago, but I say it in 3 games because this is a very tough series that could go either way. So I'm going Chicago.
This is the wild card series I struggle the most with.
Yeah.
I have San Diego getting it done at Wrigley. The fact that it's at Wrigley was the reason that I've been flip-flopping this the entire time because San Diego has not been good away from home. They have not been good at home, and they haven't been good at other people's homes, and Wrigley is a very important home to host something like this. Wrigley is a great atmosphere come October. We saw that in the 2016 run. That was a huge reason the Cubs won it all. If they get that, which they will, it'll be harder for San Diego to overcome, but I can't get past how bad Chicago's pitching is. Boyd and Shota have been bad lately. Shota is not even pitching game 1. They announced Matthew Boyd right before we got started. Shota allowed 8 runs in his last start. He hasn't had a start in which he allowed less than 3 runs in over a month since like August 21st. Boyd, on the other hand, the game 1 starter, has allowed 4 or more runs in 5 of his last 7 starts. Neither one of those guys have been good. Neither one of those guys have had ace stuff lately, and that's who you're relying on in the first 2 games. Then if it gets to a game 3, you're choosing between Jamison Taillon or Colin Ray because Cade Horton is injured now. The probable rookie of the year is injured. And the bullpen might be worse than the rotation. They don't have a go-to guy in the bullpen. Daniel Palencia is their closer.
You're right.
Do you trust him? They don't have a go-to guy before Palencia. Then Palencia is the closers. The entire pitching staff, take names out of it, struggles to strike guys out. They've had a problem with that all year long. San Diego's offense is built on getting on base. They don't strike out very often either. So I like that matchup from the Padres offense. The Jason Adam injury sucks for that Padres super bullpen, but they've had Bradley Rodriguez, who I have no idea who that is, but he was the replacement. He's actually been terrific. And Jason
They just
Adams
spawn
said,
him.
I don't know if it matters who they have thrown in the bullpen. They've had metrically the best bullpen. The names fit the bill. They'll be ready to go. It's the best bullpen in baseball, hands down, even better than the Guardians. And the Guardians' bullpen last year got them to the championship series.
It did.
The Guardians were in the ALCS because of their bullpen. And I think we could see something very similar with the Padres. And also, it's Mike Schilt. I love Mike Schilt. Should have never been fired from the Cardinals. If you have a good bullpen, you need a good guy to put them in when they need to be put in. He does that. I think it's not a coincidence that they've been so good. I think he pitches them. He puts them in very favorable positions. And yes, the rotation absolutely could be a question mark. But when you have that good of a bullpen, it eases my mind about a lot of the rotation concerns. And how many times do we see it? We'll talk about this a little bit later on with my prediction in the World Series. But the postseason is all about surviving and advancing. Pitching plans get thrown out the window all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You need bullpen, and the Padres have it. I just can't get it out of my mind about how important that was for Cleveland's team last year and how that actually advanced them pretty far on. So I have San Diego winning this series over Chicago because of that. On the lineup side, Ramon Laureano, a huge blow.
Yeah.
Because they were already a little bit lefty dependent. Ramon Laureano was the righty masher other than Tatis and Machado. So I don't like that he fractured his finger, is not going to be back for this series. But I also trust Tatis and Machado more than I do anybody in that Cubs lineup not named Kyle Tucker. If you're asking me whether I think Tatis, Machado, or a guy like PCA or Ian Happ can get it done, I'm going to go to those Padres guys.
Yeah.
And so
They definitely have the star power.
The Cubs lineup is good, but yes, other than Kyle Tucker, it's the Padres stars, and I think they lean on the stars to get it done in this series. I think this is going to be an ultra competitive. I'd be surprised if this didn't go 3 games.
Yes, I would also be. I mean, first one we've disagreed on, but obviously can flip-flop relatively easily. So I'm really intrigued for it. Starting tomorrow. That's the second game of the day, I believe it, at noon. Wearing your Padres shirt. So there you go.
am, yeah. If this was at San Diego's place, where would you have gone?
Probably San Diego.
Wrigley matters.
It matters, but I think Chicago's offense too, and I also think of Seiya Suzuki in the same conversation as Tucker as a guy that can produce runs and come up with big hits. I don't trust PCA. We kind of predicted his downfall earlier on this season, but it's going to be ultra competitive. I don't know if the Padres, and it's just hard for me too to get behind them after I was so all in on them last year.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, and I told you, I felt like last year was their year.
Yeah.
With how it was built, how their team was constructed, and they didn't take advantage. But that is going to be one of my more intriguing series of the week. Let's go to Dodgers-Reds. The Reds squeak into the playoffs with 83 wins. I cannot believe it. It makes me even more frustrated as a Giants fan, as a Cardinals fan sitting right here, that's all it took. 83 wins to get in the playoffs, and they were able to do it.
And also, it was not a 83 wins, and we were on an absolute heater towards the end of the year to get to those 83 wins and to get in front of the Mets. The Mets just collapsed. The Reds getting this spot is way more on the Mets. That's what the conversation should be about, and it is about. The Cincinnati had a losing record in their last 50 games of the year. They had a losing record below 500 in their last 50 games of the season, and they still get into the playoffs just because they stayed right there level, right there around 500, instead of the Mets, who absolutely just
collapsed.
threw away a playoff spot.
They did.
Just threw away a playoff spot.
It's a series, and I don't want to sound biased here because I mean, obviously I have natural bias as a lifelong Giants fan, but I've been so concerned with the Dodgers bullpen all year. Like, how are you able to close games? And their offense is absolutely phenomenal. But the Reds as a pitching staff has been top 10 in the league. They have Hunter Green in game 1. They won't be able to shorten games. That their bullpen's only okay. I don't know why something in me thinks the Reds are going to win this series. Something in me does. That you get in the playoffs when you shouldn't, and you ride that little ounce of momentum against the juggernaut Dodgers, who are throwing Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Shohei Ohtani. I have the Reds winning in 3 games. It's the bold prediction of the playoffs.
Wow.
You got to be bold. You got to sit up here and be bold, because every year when you just go chalk, it doesn't happen. And I think Cincinnati tomorrow is going to shock the world. They're going to beat Blake Snell and then win one of the next 2 games because they can pitch. And the other X factor who deserves way more credit, Reds Nation isn't giving him any love, is Tito Francona. You think he doesn't play a factor why they're here right now? He's going to outmanage Dave Roberts every game of this series. I would bet money on that. And I think Cincinnati shocks the world on the road. I really do. The Dodgers have been so susceptible this year. They've shown a lot of weakness. They are hot at the right time. So that's going against that grain. But I do think the Reds somehow do it.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if the Reds did it. And that is, I am always pitching first when I'm making my predictions. And Cincinnati's rotation is incredibly tempting to bet on. But LA's rotation is right there with them. And they get healthy at just the right time. It's Hunter Green versus Blake Snell. Hunter Green is fantastic. Blake Snell's been there, done that. He's shoved in a World Series game. He's been there, done that. Then you have Yoshi Yamamoto versus either Andrew Abbott or Nick Lodolo. Yamamoto, I'm taking Yamamoto in that. And if it gets to a game 3, then you have whoever didn't pitch, Abbott or Lodolo versus Tyler Glasnow. And then you also have guys behind them in that Dodgers rotation, like a Kershaw and Emmett Sheehan, that don't have a spot here, but can give you good innings because they've been really good as of late too. So I would be very surprised if the Reds won this series. I would love it. I would love that if you're right. But I just don't see it happening. I think this is another sweep candidate. Again, the Reds had a losing record in their last 50 games. It's not like I saw a lot of people drawing comparisons to the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals, who were way out of a playoff spot. They had to play meteoric baseball to get in. They had to play the hottest brand of baseball
And
ever.
how many wins did they finish with?
Very similar amount.
Okay.
That's what the comparisons were
Gotcha.
made for. NL Central team, not one of the best teams on paper, way out of it, and then they get in. That's where the comparisons drew from. This is different. The Reds have, yes, they have momentum in the sense that they got a playoff spot at the end of the year. They have no momentum based on how they've been playing at all. And so, again, this was way more Mets collapse, and there's a spot open, and the Reds were just a little bit less below average than the Cardinals and the Giants and the D-backs and the Marlins were. And so I would love to bet on the pitching, but I just can't when it's the Dodgers pitching across for them that can match them in every one of these games, if not better than them in each one of these games. And then this is without talking about the lineup. It's
not even close.
Did they end up having a guy with 20 home runs? We were talking a couple weeks. I think Ellie eventually got there, but we were talking a couple weeks ago. Their top home run hitter was with 19 home runs. They play at Great American Small Park, and they didn't have a 20 home run hitter.
Yeah.
Until a couple of days ago. And so the lineup is just the Dodgers blow them out on paper, and not on paper. And then the rotation, if this was the Reds rotation versus the Cubs rotation, or even the Padres rotation, then yes, I am heavily considering moving the Reds on, because Hunter Green does give you a chance to go 8 shutout innings and we win this game 2-0. But when it's Blake Snell and Yamamoto and Glass now across from you that are healthy right now, I'm going with LA.
It's bold, but
I'd love for you to be right, though.
You got to take some bold.
I just can't see it.
I'm just really, really concerned about the bullpen. I think there's going to be a moment, if it's not this series, in the playoffs, where they're throwing out a Ben Kasparius, and he blows the game.
It's definitely concerning.
So, and the Reds, as I mentioned, don't have a super pen or anything.
They've got Emilio Pagan.
Yeah.
Tony Santillan.
There was just something in me. And it wasn't even like a Dodgers hate thing. I just think that I've seen them lose in the wild card before, the first round. And that was against a D-backs team that was much hotter, had everything going. And a Dodgers rotation that featured Bobby Miller and Lance Lynn and what in the world?
Correct.
But there's something in me that thinks magic is going to strike. So I have the Reds moving on. Let's go back to the American League. So we're kind of jumping around because we're going wild card, then DS. Let's go Tigers-Mariners.
We would both have this matchup.
Yep. The Seattle Mariners have been such an amazing story. Part of me thinks that Shay and I are going to have the exact same American League. Just going to throw that out there now, but we'll see what happens. I have the Mariners moving on here. I'm giving it to them in 3 games. I think they're going to sweep them. I genuinely don't think this is going to be close. The Tigers just get by the Cleveland Guardians, the fun Tarek start, and then, we actually have to play a good team now who can mash and hit home runs, and it's at their place, and they have an elite rotation. In every single way, besides A.J. Hinch being a little better than Dan Wilson, and everybody in Seattle loves Dan Wilson, this is the Mariners series. They're a juggernaut in comparison. And when I think about the different scenarios in my head of how could the Tigers possibly win this, I can't even think of one. Not one.
Unless Tarek can throw every day.
If he could possibly get a rubber arm that never got sore and he threw 120 pitches a day, maybe they lose in 4. I've got the Mariners in 3 games, though. I don't think it's going to be close.
I like Seattle as well. If you want to advance in the playoffs, you need 4-man rotations. You get the off days, so you don't need that 5th guy. Still, most teams do not have the 4 guys that they can go to game in and game out and trust. Most teams have to, as we were talking about earlier, piece it together any way they can. Starters coming back on short rest out of the bullpen. A young starting pitcher that you had in that game 4, they're bounced after 2 innings. I don't know if that happens with the Mariners. They legit have a 4-man rotation.
They're a juggernaut.
That is by far the best in baseball and can genuinely win them some playoff series. And now they have a chance to show that. Offensively, they're built on home runs and stolen bases. They're top 3 in each of those categories. That is how you win in modern baseball. You steal bases, hope for the big hit. Big hit doesn't come, you hit a home run. And you can definitely do that when you have the guys that they have in the starting rotation. Luis Castillo, he might be the worst out of them. Logan Gilbert, Kirby, Brian Wu has been fantastic. Bryce Miller has been great. That's 5 names I just threw out there. They have a luxury, embarrassment of riches in that rotation. You know how much I love pitching and how much I think that matters in situations like this. I have to go Mariners. I agree with you. I'll give them a Tarek game. I'm still going to say Seattle in 4. They could win the Tarek game and it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Also, Mariners are very good at home.
So good.
Very good at home. Detroit's offense hasn't been awful, but are they going to be able to perform in a majority of T-Mobile games? It's hard to hit in Seattle. Mariners have figured it out. The Mariners know how to hit in Seattle. They play their 81 games out of the year. I don't know if the Tigers can even come close to that offensive production. And also, I was never high on the Tigers this year. Had them missing the playoffs after their crazy run last year.
As well.
I can't pencil them into the ALCS after not even thinking they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
They're
that's
also, again, they collapsed. They were just like the Mets, but the only difference is they're actually in the thing. They're not going to be after the Mariners series. I gave them one series against the Guardians. That was more Tarek in one game out of 3 gets that series done. I've been high on the Mariners for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Now they actually have
something's got to give.
Now they
right?
actually have a shot to prove it. I can't not take Seattle in this series. I have the Mariners to the ALCS.
They did everything right at the trade deadline. They bring in Naylor, Gino Suarez, Julio Rodriguez, 30-30 season. Randy Arozarena is a playoff performer. Doesn't it feel like the stars are finally going to align?
It does.
It does. Mariners in 3. Moving on to the ALCS. This is the lone team in MLB history, for all you don't know, that has never won a pennant. They have never made a World Series in the history of their franchise. We've both got them moving on.
They're going to have a shot to do
the
it
ALCS.
this year.
They will. Yankees.
That was the team that won 116 games one season. Was that it? 116?
116,
Yeah.
something like that.
They had one of the greatest regular seasons ever, if not the greatest regular season, and they still didn't win a pennant.
They did not. Yankees, Blue Jays. I had the Blue Jays a couple of weeks ago making it to the World Series, but the recent run by the New York Yankees and just them as a whole are resulting me to pick them in 4 games. And I also feel like Aaron Judge at some point is going to have a big playoff. He's just too talented. He's going to put the team on his back at some point. Maybe he didn't last year because Juan Soto was there. At some point, it's got to give. He won the batting title and hit 50 homers. That's unheard of.
It's one of the greatest offensive seasons. It's the top 50 offensive season of all time in the regular season.
Top 50. Think about all the players.
He's already got a couple of them, too.
Think about all the players in American history, or in baseball history.
It's a WRC plus well above 200, which means he is well above 100% better than a league average hitter. Cal Raleigh, WRC plus, we're not going to get into an MVP debate right now, but WRC plus factors in the park factor. They know how much harder it is to hit in Seattle than it is in New York. They account for that. Cal's is still in the 160 range compared to Judge's well above 200.
Yeah.
This dude is good.
And for the Yankees, I like their bullpen a lot more. It started off shaky when they added Bednar and Doval and all these guys, but it's gotten better at the right time as well. The starting pitching is plenty good enough. The one thing that's scary is you go on the road to Toronto, a team that is absolutely phenomenal. But when I went through my 4 categories, the Yankees, in my eyes, won all 4. And I have them winning in 4 games. Moving on to the ALCS, you want to talk about storylines. Mariners, Yankees. Rematch of 2001 where the Yankees beat them. And you get that matchup, and then Raleigh and Judge going at it.
Yes, I also saw that. This is when I have the Jays. This is when I worry about the Jays. I also have the Yankees advancing, so we do have the same exact American League right now. The lineup has been limping lately without Bo Bichette.
Yeah, banged up.
I don't know if they get him back for this series or not. It's kind of murky right now. It was already an offense that I was going to struggle to trust come playoffs. Talked about how good they were this year. There's some names in there that I don't know if I can believe in them to get a big hit in a big time. And so you already have that going. Then you have Bo Bichette. Is he going to be rushed back? Is he not going to be there at all? Rotation-wise, they got the names I love, but they've been inconsistent this year, and they are injured right now. Chris Bassett and Jose Barrios currently on the IL. That helps nothing when it comes to the rotation. Kevin Gausman has been nails this year, but he has struggled lately. That's their game 1 guy. That's going to be as good as it gets any close. It's Bieber game 2 coming off of Tommy John. 40-year-old Max Scherzer in game 3, and then you have a rookie in Trey Yesovich in a possible game 4. If Barrios and Bassett don't come back, that is what the pitching prospects are like for the Blue Jays rotation. And so, yes, I had them winning the division. I was very high on them. They deliver. If I would have told Yankees fans that at the beginning of the year, they would have looked at me like I was crazy. Well, here is the reversal of that. The Yankees, I think, are the far superior team in this series. The offense versus a starting rotation that I cannot get behind in their current state. I got the Yankees.
There we go.
That's a recipe for disaster. If Barrios and Bassett don't come back, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
Against this Yankees lineup.
Something's going to have to give for Toronto. Somebody like a Trey Yesovich emerging out of nowhere and showing that I'm already a big-time playoff pitcher before having any prior experience. That's what it's going to have to take.
They are all on weak ice right now. All those guys in the rotation are standing on weak ice. They're standing on eggshells, and I just can't trust any of them.
Mariners, Yankees, ALCS. Wouldn't that be something?
Again, Max Fried, best pitcher in baseball in the last month.
Yep.
That I would be surprised if he loses games this postseason. So.
Yes, and I think that's where we both have the Yankees going on this run is because of guys like Max Fried. Then I have Brewers, Cubs. We'll go back to the National League. I have the Brewers winning this in 5 games, and I'm just going to stay on the Brewers train. And it's because of the Euchre magic. It's because all season long they've been able to pitch. And I'm really interested to see who Shay has Padres Brewers because that would be a phenomenal series. But although the Cubs, metrically, when I was doing this whole thing, they're better than the Brewers in a lot of ways. Brewers are hosting. They get that rest. Their bullpen is plenty good because they just throw guys out there. This is going to be an improbable run. It will be. But they have the magic. They've done it all year. This is arguably their best season in franchise history thus far. And I'm just going to keep on riding it because I said they were going to win the World Series. I'm not going to switch up now. Brewers moving on to the NLCS.
I've got both 1 seeds failing to make the championship series, just like that happened a couple years ago. I've got the Padres beating the Brewers. It feels wrong because it's the Brewers to bring up pitching as a concern, but it legitimately is. After Freddie Peralta, I have no idea what they're going to do. Quinn Priester, Robert Gasser, I have no idea what they're going to do. And because of that, if it becomes a battle of the bullpens, again, it's the Padres super pen.
Yeah.
It's the Padres super bullpen. If it's a battle of the bullpens, if that's what it comes down to, you have to take San Diego there. Even though, yes, it feels like whoever the Brewers put in, they get you 2 strikeouts in a 1-2-3 inning. It does. It feels like that. But it hasn't shown up like that in past playoffs. The Brewers are in they haven't had as good as regular seasons as this in the past, but they're in similar spots in the playoffs last year. They were just last year. Game 3 against the Mets. They had that. Then they blew it. So I think the Brewers are going to have to score a lot of runs in this series. I think their pitching does not come up for them in this postseason. I think they're going to have to score a lot of runs, and they don't have a single, on FanGraphs page when you're looking at the lineup and they show you how good the hitter's been compared to others in the league the entire season, and then they also show you how good the hitter has been in the last 30 days or in the last 2 weeks. And if they have been like top 30, they get a red box. The Brewers do not have a single red box hitter on the entire FanGraphs page. They don't have a single guy 1 through 9 that has been a top 30 hitter or a top hitter in the league overall, and they don't have a guy that has been hot the last 2 weeks to the month that is the hottest hitter in baseball. So if it's a rotation, or if it's a lineup that has to produce because of what they're lacking in the rotation, then I can't trust a lineup that has not been producing like they should be lately. It's also a back half of the lineup. Can't trust the back half of the lineup. And that's always how the Brewers are, really. But after William Contreras and Yelich and Turang, who has been terrific, Frelick's been good, but after that, I don't know who they go to. If that top of the lineup can set the table, who is going to drive them in? And who is at the bottom of the lineup going to set the table for the guys at the top to drive them in? This really what it comes down to is I just gave the whole matchup comparison, but I have to see the Brewers win in the postseason before I can trust it because they got to prove me wrong.
I get it. And gosh, I feel like I'm going against myself really with this Brewers pick because a lot of it for me is genuinely a vibe. And I know that's...
Oh, we're going to get into...
That's not a statistical back end, but
my
in
World
baseball...
Series pick is the exact same.
Okay. A baseball... In baseball, when storylines can fuel a narrative, it truly is based on vibe. Like every year, last year, the Dodgers were so much better than this Brewers team. Let's not even get into that. But they had Fernando Valenzuela pass, and they rode that momentum. And now the Brewers have Bob Uecker. And I also think that for Milwaukee, this is a super favorable draw.
It is.
They're at home against either the Cubs or Padres, and then they get a banged-up Phillies, Dodgers, Red, whoever it is. They got to win 8 games to get to the World Series.
But can they win the 8 games?
We'll see. Quinn Priester
they got to win 7 games. I don't even know if they can do that.
Quinn Priester, prior to his last start, won 15. They won 15 straight of his games.
That's true.
And Pat Murphy, I go back to Pat Murphy every single time because he is such a terrific manager. He might win Manager of the Year again. Probably should. And they've done it all season. They've won games all season. But I do want to fully acknowledge for everybody listening at home that this is going against like my own general playoff beliefs. This is more what I've seen. Something has to give for the Brewers eventually, I feel like, in their franchise's history. And I think what's a better year than in 2025 with all that's gone on?
Yeah, and it feels like a star power argument for me again, and that's not always how the postseason goes. But the Brewers do not have a Fernando Tatis Jr. They do not have a Manny Machado. The Padres do. They have a great lineup, and it's versus guys after that Freddie Peralta game: Quinn Priester, Chad Patrick, Robert Gasser. I don't think they will throw out Jacob Mizorowski to start a game with how shaky he's been, not being able to throw strikes. And so I can't trust the pitching as much as I want to when it's the Milwaukee Brewers looking at me, and then I can't trust the offense enough to, if I'm correct about the pitching collapsing a little bit for him, I don't trust the offense to pick up the slack. And for that reason, I have the Padres.
For that reason, you're out. I feel like I'm listening to Shark Tank. I want to shout out our producer, Ratisha, too. Thank you so much for all you've done. We're going to go to Reds Phillies now, or for you, it will be Dodgers Phillies, which is probably more likely, but I'm taking the chance. You got to take chances here.
I like it.
I've got the Phillies moving on in 6 games. I think the Reds match up well from a pitching side, but if you end up beating the Dodgers in 3 games, that means Hunter Green is more than likely not ready for the start of that series. The Phillies will be at home, and they're so good at Citizens Bank Park. This is just 2 teams that are not really in the same conversation that would be going at it in the playoffs, and I think this is the farthest that the Reds would possibly go. We're high on the Phillies every single year. My one concern has been Rob Thompson. Is he the manager to get them there? They constantly fall short. They're another team where it feels like something's got to give eventually. And I have them moving on to the NLCS to take on the Milwaukee Brewers.
So we're going to have the same exact ALCS, but we will have a completely different NLCS. I have the Dodgers beating the Phillies. This feels like a series that if you look at these 2 rosters, the talent that they have, it deserves 7 games. It really probably shouldn't be a NLDS matchup where it's best of 5. This could even be happening in the World Series if they were in opposite leagues.
Oh, yeah.
And that might be what I would have predicted, potentially. But instead, it's going to happen in the NLDS unless the Reds can make something happen in that series. If Zach Wheeler was healthy, I think I'm picking the Phillies because I do like the Phillies a lot. I'm very worried about one of those starters that they have that have to lead the way now, and Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, and Jesus Luzardo. Aaron Nola's going to be there, but he has been not nearly as good this year either. I'm worried about one of those guys having a blow-up start. And I could even see it happening twice. We've seen it multiple times with Luzardo this year. Luzardo has looked like one of the best pitchers in baseball, and then all of a sudden he'll let up 10 runs in 3 innings. It's happened once a month, it feels like. What if we get one of those? Ranger has not been good this year. What if we get a blow-up start from him? And so that is why I picked the Dodgers here. It's also going to be straight lefties in the rotation with the stretch of Sanchez, Suarez, and Luzardo.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers, yes, 2 of their best hitters are left-handed hitters in Freddie Freeman or Shohei Ohtani. Both of those guys, it does not matter if it's a righty or lefty throwing against. So they both have OPSs of nearly 900 against fellow Southpaws. So the Dodgers rotation, I think, could just be better for the playoffs than the Phillies one is, especially because they're healthy. And then again, Emmett Sheehan has been a stud lately. And I'm not saying that has to replicate in the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to ask him to replicate that for 6 innings in the playoffs.
No,
I
just
think
a couple.
Yeah, just a couple. I think he's out of the bullpen. I think Kershaw, who is trying to go out on a high note, can give some good innings out of the bullpen. So I like those 2 guys and then Roki. Throw Roki in that conversation as well. He's got great stuff. Maybe that stuff is better for an inning here and there in a high leverage spot in the playoffs. And so I just like the Dodgers pitching enough to get it done against the Phillies. Phillies, you could even make the argument Philadelphia has a better lineup, top to bottom, than the Dodgers. But I like the Dodgers to get through a series that does feel like, for those 2 teams, I feel like it's going to be a pinnacle of like whoever gets past this can go all the way. I think these 2 teams feel like that in a potential matchup, but only one can advance, and I have the Dodgers doing it.
The Dodgers were battle-tested last year. They got all the way to the promised land, and they'll be looking to get back there with a little bit of a different roster, but still the same guys. Shohei Ohtani's had a year that is arguably better than last season.
Shohei Ohtani can give you innings too. It's just
he was actually.
I
believe he was announced as the Game 3 starter against Cincy.
Wow.
If it were to happen.
Well, there you go.
And then Glass now may come out of the pen. So they have a lot of options.
They do have a lot of options.
That's really what it is.
And that you were very valid in your concerns about the bullpen and that when you picked the Reds in that series, but that takes a lot of pressure off the bullpen when you got all those starters that can come out.
Yep.
With closer stuff. Glass now has closer stuff that can. Shohei has closer stuff. Roki Sasaki has closer stuff that can give you those good innings at the back end of games.
This series should absolutely not be just 5 games.
Yeah,
that's a disservice.
Deserves 7. It deserves 7.
It's a disservice to the MLB if it's only 5, but that makes it even more of a toss-up. Who can come through in just that 5-game series? And if the Phillies were to lose this one, as Shay predicts, there's some serious conversations that will begin with every bit of their organization.
Because also this is Schwarber's last season of his contract.
And he's been so good.
Amazing. And so what happens there? Yeah.
So, Shay has Padres-Dodgers, NLCS.
Dodgers,
that'd be awesome. NL West rematch.
And Yankees-Mariners.
Okay, let's start with Yankees-Mariners, the one that we both have. I've got the Seattle Mariners going to the World Series for the first time in franchise history. And it's because of that pitching. It's because of an offense, and it's going to be in Seattle. When they lost after their historic season, which was in the 2001 ALCS, that was a low point for all these fans. It was almost like Seattle's never going to get back there because our identity as an organization is that we're not going to spend the big bucks. We're not going to constantly compete for championships. Their GM even went out and said, yeah, if we just make it to the playoffs, squeak in, that's good, and whatever. But history's going to repeat itself in the reverse order. Yankees, Mariners. It's such an amazing bond that it's going to happen this way. And if there was anything in the playoffs that I would be more confident about, or the thing I'm most confident in, is Mariners-Yankees in the ALCS. I really think that's going to happen. And I think this time around, the Mariners win in 6 games and go to the World Series, backed by this elite pitching and then timely hitting from their superstars.
I'm right there with you. Again, I have the Mariners winning this matchup. This could be 7. I love this series if it happens. The Mariners pitching staff gets it done again. I think the Yankees have the great offense, but they'll have to play the majority of the games in this series in T-Mobile again. It's just a park that the Mariners have been excellent at, and they've been able to produce offensively very good at this park, and something that teams come in and they struggle with, especially when it's going to get colder and colder as we get into October as well. They just got demons on the hill. They got guys that are going to shove for them, and I don't know if the Yankees home run hitters, because they're a team that, again, they're first in home runs. They're built on home runs too in that offense. Are their home run hitters going to be able to get it done? You talked about Judge's struggles in the postseason. Other than that, they've had Jazz Chisholm and Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham hit a lot of home runs for them this year. Are those guys producing in this series? I don't know. They can be good against run-of-the-mill guys over a 162 regular season, but when you are facing the likes of Brian Wu and Logan Gilbert and George Kirby night in and night out in a series, I think those guys' bats go cold. I also love this because it's the Cal Raleigh versus Aaron Judge,
yes, I love
MVP to pay actually in a series, and I think Cal Raleigh, his MVP truthers, if he has a big series and the Mariners win this, then oh my gosh, they're going to be loud.
And even though it's only a regular season award, this sort of stuff can sway voters. Even though they won't admit it, or more fans, I would say, than voters, because they already have their things decided. But it will sway fans, and if Cal Raleigh is sitting there, and
the dialogue will be
a lot different. So I've got the Mariners moving on. Wouldn't that be special?
Also, I feel like it has cooled down, but the Yankees were like the worst fundamental team in the entire league for a month or two.
Oh yeah,
they were making like 3 errors a night. Anthony Volpe couldn't throw the ball to short, or ball from shortstop to first base. Could those defensive miscues just rear their ugly head at some point in a series like this? And when keep talking about it, the razor thin margins, it gets really thin when you're facing a rotation and a pitching staff like the Mariners have. These are going to be low scoring games potentially, a defensive error or two can absolutely decide a game in a series like this. So that's another little element I threw in that made me want to trust the Mariners more than the Yankees.
NLCS, I want to start with you, Shay. You had Dodgers, Padres, NL West rematch. Last year, the Dodgers got the better of them. Who comes out on top this time around?
I wanted this rematch. I wanted the NLDS rematch of last year, a series that San Diego had won.
In the back.
They had won. They absolutely should have advanced over the Dodgers. Instead, they can't score a run all of a sudden. How many innings straight did they go with?
20 plus.
Yeah,
I always
they
forget
just
the
couldn't.
exact number.
They could not score a run. I think they want it back. I think they want this matchup back. And what I was talking about with the Phillies Dodgers having that series against each other, I think that matters. I really do think mentally that is if whatever team comes out of that, Philly or LA, they're like, we are the two best teams in the rest of the playoff bracket overall. We have the most talent out of anybody else in these playoffs, not only on the NL side, but on the AL side as well. I really do think it's, all right, if we win this, we win the World Series.
Yes.
And then they could get slapped in the face, either one of these teams,
Yep.
the next series. And it doesn't even have to be against the Padres. I think they could be slapped in the face against the Brewers or another team that comes out. So I think the Dodgers, we talked about the Yankees' defensive miscues. The Dodgers at certain points this year have played genuinely bad baseball for stretches of the season. They have. That is rare for them over a 162 because of all the talented players they have, but they have played bad baseball spurts on a couple of occasions this year. What if we see that after a big-time series where they get all the way up for it against Philadelphia? What if we see that the next series? I think the Padres could take advantage of something like that. They want vengeance, and they get it done. I'm gonna stop saying bullpen, but they get it done. I think they can take advantage if the Dodgers have a little bit of a collapse moment like that.
So how about this? On your side, you'd have Padres, Mariners, World Series.
Yes.
And that means somebody is going to have to win their first.
I have Padres, yes, because it's stupid. It is stupid to bet on a team to win the World Series for the first time. But if we get in a spot where there is three legitimate teams that have never won the World Series, when you throw in the Brewers as well, there's three legitimate teams in the playoffs. I would have all three of those guys in the top half of the 12 that made the postseason as potential World Series winners.
One of them's got.
So when you have that kind of odds, it's not as stupid anymore, especially when your AL team and your NL team winning the pennant, one of them has to do it.
I have Phillies versus the Brewers in the NLCS, and staying with that same theme, I've got the Brewers coming out on top in 7 games.
So we both think there's going to be a new World Series winner.
Yes, there will be a new World Series champion in 2025. Some fan base, their dad, their grandpa, they've been waiting this whole time for a World Series champion, and they're going to finally get it this year.
I agree. I don't have the Brewers, but I agree.
I've got the Brewers in 7. This is where the manager thing comes into play for me. Pat Murphy will walk circles around Rob Thompson in a series like this. We'll be able to shorten the games with the bullpen, make those necessary moves, pinch hitters off the bench, whatever it may be. The Phillies are the juggernaut, but I'm thinking the same way as Shay, just a little opposite. This is going to be a look ahead for the Phillies. Looking ahead to a potential matchup against the Mariners or the Yankees, and, we got this. We got this. And they look past the Milwaukee Brewers, who with that Bob Uecker magic go all the way to the World Series. Mariners, Brewers in the Fall Classic, and that would just be a full circle culmination of our parity theory.
This is what
that the game is saved.
This is a storylines based scenario for me, because if you print out that playoff bracket for me and you sit it in front of me and you're like, all right, your life depends on this. Most of the scenarios, most of the times that you put me in that situation, I'm going to have the Dodgers winning it all. I'm going to have the Phillies winning it all. But that's not fun. That's not fun for you if I pick the Dodgers with my co-host, the Giants fan. That's not fun for the vast majority of the public. That's not fun for me. This would be either one of our World Series matchups would be an ultra fun series. And Padres Mariners would be awesome. Super bullpen versus super rotation, built on pitching, super fun fan bases that have rallied around this year's teams, rallied around the teams in the past couple of seasons. And yes, everyone was screaming foul at last year's World Series matchup. Yankees versus Dodgers. We need a salary cap. We need a salary floor. They can just spend out the wazoo, the deferments, all this kind of stuff. And I think we're going to get to the championship series round with the Yankees in the ALCS and the Dodgers in the NLCS. And I think people are like, here we go again. We're going to have a rematch. It's going to be Yankees-Dodgers again. They're the two best teams left. Yabba dabba do. And then neither one of them make it. People in 2023, when it was the Phillies versus the Diamondbacks and the Astros versus the Rangers, and you had the Diamondbacks and the Astros, or excuse me, the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, both coming from that first wild card round where they were 5 and 6 seeds. The conversation was the same. Everybody thought it was going to be a rematch of Astros-Phillies. They were both in the CS there. Never happened. Neither one of them got there. I think the same thing happens here. Everybody's calling for the rematch. Everybody's already getting mad. They're pre-firing their, you just got to pay to win in this sport. And all of a sudden, it's Mariners versus Padres. And it's two teams that have never won it before ever with the chance to do it.
And that's baseball. That is what the roots of baseball are. From a consistency perspective, yes, if you're a top half team in payroll, you're going to make the playoffs more often than not. But if you know how to operate a small market like the Guardians do, like the Brewers do, you're going to continuously find yourself back in these positions with a chance to win it. And that's why this year it's going to be a new champion. Padres, Mariners, World Series for you. I want to hear the winner. Who you got?
There's a reason
taking home the 2025 Fall Classic.
There's a reason I wore the shirt today.
Padres.
I've got the Friars. I do have the Friars. Again, I bring up the elite bullpen versus elite rotation, and I mentioned earlier, what matters more? It's the bullpen in the playoffs. The series shorten, the game shorten. It's managers are way more likely to pull a guy after 3 innings, pull a guy in the 4th inning. They're just not getting the outs the way they want it. And 2016, the Guardians or the Indians at that time did not end up winning, but Andrew Miller would just come out of the bullpen and throw 3-4 innings. So you need guys like that.
Yeah.
How many times the Giants would all of a sudden bring out Madison
Brian
Bumgarner. Bumgarner in the bullpen. It's just the bullpen matters. No matter who you have in there, the bullpen matters. You throw all the starting pitching plans out the window. And so if you get that with the Mariners, they win on the starting pitching. Their bullpen's not nearly as good as the Padres one is. So if you got a situation where Brian Woo's been terrific through the postseason, all of a sudden he's a young kid. He just can't get it done in Game 3 of the Fall Classic. The Padres are way better suited for a situation like that than the Mariners pitching is. And I think the Padres will already have had to do that in the playoffs up to this point. Because I would bold this prediction, underline it, circle it, highlight it, all the above, if the Padres had a more trusted, more reliable rotation. They don't. But I think the bullpen, with how good it is, makes it a moot point. I think Mike Schilt gets it done. I think the Padres get it done. I think a GM and A.J. Preller that actually cares and loves the team and tries at the deadline. He traded one of the best prospects in baseball for Mason Miller. He traded Leo DeVries for a closer, who's now the setup guy. This guy wants to win so bad. And on the other side, yes, the Mariners also had an active deadline. But you're exactly right. When you talked about their GM, Jerry DiPoto, last year, he said, we're just trying to win 85, 90 games, squeak into the playoffs, see what happens, wait for a spark. Do you have on the other side a Padres front office, a GM and an owner that have never spent like that at all? All of a sudden they're spinning out the wahoo. They're getting everybody that anybody in that office wants. All right, we'll go get them. They want to win. They tried to win. I hope they get rewarded. And I think they have a really good team. I think they have the opportunity to get rewarded in a series like this.
They're a phenomenal ball club. They do a lot of amazing things right. And you mentioned it. I mean, A.J. Preller is the most aggressive member of front office in sports, I think. He goes all in. And you mentioned something's got to give. Something's got to give with A.J. Preller, right? When you keep putting a product on the field that is going all in every year, you got to win one of them.
And maybe at this point they have Ramon Laureano back. And also the Mariners, as much as I like their team, that's why I have them in this situation. How many games do they win where their rotation, whoever they have starting that day, keeps them in it? It's a low-scoring game, and all of a sudden Cal Raleigh hits a home run, or Josh Naylor hits a home run, or Randy Arozarena hits a home run, and they win the game because of it. Can they do that late in games against the guys the Padres have coming out of the bullpen? I don't know. I don't know if they can rely on that kind of strategy.
That would just be, especially after last year when they had the roster to go all the way. And then this year, when people start to doubt them a little more, they get over the hump. Padres winning the World Series for Shay, and I've got the Brewers. Brewers versus the Mariners win a World Series. This would be Brewers-Mariners. No one could have predicted that preseason. And the Brewers just keep the hot hand rolling. The Uke magic comes to fruition. It's complete. And Milwaukee, led by Christian Yelich and whoever else, some other guy that comes through out of nowhere. This feels like a series that's going to be based on kind of the role players, you could call it, where insert name comes through with a big hit, like a Joey Ortiz who's awful, or somebody like that. And for the casual baseball fan, they absolutely despise it. Oh, I can't stand what's going on.
Who is hitting?
Yes. But
who am I watching?
I've got to keep going with the Brewers. When I put out this list of 1 through 4 of my most important things for the playoffs, the Brewers don't win a lot of those categories. They don't. I'll be honest. Mariners would win in this scenario. Phillies would win in the last scenario. Cubs would win in the first scenario. And I'm still picking them to go all the way. Because there's something about baseball that's special. And the Brewers are going to win a World Series at some point. They will. I think it's going to be in 2025.
I don't hate it at all. I think it's funny that we have been harping the last few months about the National League is going to win the World Series. And we both stuck true to those guns. Yep. I have the Padres winning, you have the Brewers winning. But when you look at the National League and some of the teams they have, you can even throw the Mets and their lineup into this. It's not a National League team that probably people would expect. It's probably the Dodgers or the Phillies.
Misfits.
But if these two teams can make it out of that gauntlet, then yeah, they're beating whoever comes out of the AL. So I love it. I love what we got. We got in either one of our scenarios, we have teams that are going to win the World Series for the first time. That would be awesome. It would be a complete throw it in the trash, all that talk about it's only the top tier teams, it's only the top payrolls that are going to win in this sport for the next 10, 20 years forever unless something changes. To hell with all of that.
That's how the regular season has been too. This isn't multiple 100-game winners that we're picking against. No, there's been parity already.
There's no 100-win teams.
Yeah.
The Dodgers had a win total preseason well above 100. The Phillies were right there at a 100-win total. It didn't happen.
It didn't. And the Brewers
were the team
and the
that
got
Blue
the 1
Jays
seed.
are the 1 seed. The Mariners are the 2 seed.
What a year. And I don't see that changing. If it's a year of parity, it's going to stay as a year of parity. Something's not just going to change out of nowhere. I'm so excited. Tomorrow is going to be absolutely terrific. We're going to have a lot of content throughout the week coming at you guys. And Tuesday, tomorrow night, is our show. That'll be going on right around midway through Reds-Dodgers.
Final game.
That would feel good for me if the Reds, when we go live, are ahead. But we've got some bold predictions. And you got to sit here and make bold predictions. Because you go chalk, it doesn't happen. So why not have some fun?
It never unfolds. I mean, we're sitting with our bracket last year. After 2023, we saw the Diamondbacks and all the magic they had our first years here in Phoenix, and we kind of rallied around those teams. Our teams weren't in the playoffs, so we rallied around that. It was fun. I mean, those type of teams are fun. If we get these scenarios that we just predicted, that is going to be a fun postseason, a chaotic postseason. But we act like it's not like there's no star power on these teams. We have the Mariners in the World Series. They have a potential MVP in Cal Raleigh. They have Randy Arozarena that has showed up in the postseason before. Then you have the Padres with guys like Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. The Brewers have Freddie Peralta, who could have won a Cy Young. The Brewers have a young stud that Jackson Chourio, and if those casuals you were referencing don't know his name, they would in a series like this. Yelich was in that MVP battle with Cody Bellinger in 2021. It was Yelly versus, or was that 2019? Yelly versus Belly. Could he use a series like this to return to that star power form? It's not like there's no good players on these teams. It's not like we're just taking teams to win on the power of friendship.
Not just throwing it at the wall.
Yes. These teams are legit. That's why they're in these spots. They're going to have the opportunity to win it all. And I'm glad that we have not just Yanks-Dodgers again.
And it very well could be that way. But I frankly would be shocked with how this year has gone. I would be.
We said that last year. That was my biggest pushback on it last year. With the Yanks and the Dodgers, it's like, this is a one-season sample size that you are using to judge the next however many years on.
It's almost like the past 10 years didn't exist.
Because of the two teams that were in that situation.
Yes.
It could have the fact that it was two top payroll teams fit the bill, fit what we've been talking about. How it's any given year, a new team shows up against a new team. You know?
Yeah. It's going to be absolutely terrific. Every game is going to, and you know what? We could sit here too, and it could be another one of these teams that makes a magical run that we didn't predict.
I said I didn't like the Reds-Cardinals comparisons. The Guardians would fit the Cardinals comparisons back in 2011. A team that should not be there. They have one superstar in Jose Ramirez. Cardinals had the one star in Albert Pujols. They were built on pitching, and they were built on the role players getting it done in clutch times. Think about David Freese, Alan Craig, those guys, Lance Berkman, those guys weren't at the top of the sport when they went on that magical run. The Guardians are a team that is way more similar to that 2011 Cardinals team than the Reds are. What if I have the Guardians losing first round? What if they go all the way?
They could.
They absolutely could. They absolutely could.
So much parity.
And that is why it's our favorite sport.
It's amazing. And you can even look at the NBA. I was thinking about the NBA, not just because it's getting going, but you had the Thunder and the Pacers.
Yeah.
And that sport, too, had so much talk about, game's gone. Warriors, Cavs are going to be in it every year for the next 20 seasons, and the Celtics. And now we're back. Thunder, Pacers. No one had that. I feel like the MLB is going to align the same way. Nobody had that because we just had the year Dodgers, Chiefs, Celtics. Now we're going back into the here. Even if you close your eyes, you can't predict it.
Yeah.
So pumped. Tomorrow, it begins.
10
Tuesday
a.m.
morning, 10 a.m. We're going to be watching all of it, bringing you nonstop content. For our producer, Ratisha, Shay Maloney, Aidan O'Neill, signing off from the studio in Tempe. Going to be doing a lot more stuff out here, so stay tuned. So pumped for all the content, but the MLB playoffs are here. We'll see you all tomorrow.